G'day, welcome back to another episode of Extractions&Ire, where we're taking on another project of science to do in the shed. And this month's project is to make silicon carbide, this interesting semiconductor material. To make silicon carbide, we just really need to mix silicon and carbon, mix it well and heat it up. So it's kind of like baking a cake if you were baking that cake on the surface of the sun. I mean, maybe not surface of the sun temperatures, but we still need to get this very hot. This is a very high temperature and is going to push our heating equipment to the limit, probably past its limit. So that's really the main problem with this whole episode and project. I'll get into it straight away. Can we heat this mixture hot enough? If we can, we will end up with some silicon carbide. And if not, I don't know, I'll be very sad. But that's the science for this month. Heating. Silicon carbide is an interesting material. It really gets the semiconductor properties from the silicon and the physical hardness properties from the carbon, although it doesn't really excel in either of those areas. You know, it ends up in some sort of weird applications because it's hard, but not quite as hard as diamond. It ends up in abrasives, really, if you want to cheap out and don't want to go with diamonds. There's also some body armor ends up with silicon carbide, but the semiconductor properties are also interesting. The first LEDs were silicon carbide, and you can get really good gem quality silicon carbide. It's not quite as hard as diamond again, so that kind of lowers its value. And also, it's obviously a synthetic material, so that doesn't get as valued as high as natural diamonds. But really, when you look at it, it looks so nice because the refractive index is higher than diamonds, so that actual sparkle, that kind of rainbow, I think it's called fire in diamonds, it's more enhanced in this silicon carbide. The trade name for the gem is moissanite, and you can get these big lumps of moissanite, gem quality moissanite, for pretty cheap. Apologies, I don't have a diamond this size to compare the fire to, but yeah, this pure silicon carbide is fantastic. Actually, speaking of fire, this is another gem I also got from Turtle's Hoard, and this is a rutile gem, and rutile has a very high refractive index, and it is insanely sparkly. I've never seen anything like it. It's just the most fascinating gem to look at, and it's just made out of titanium dioxide, which is just used to make white paint. But here it is in a gem, and it looks fantastic. It's the best gem I've ever seen. It's fantastic. Anyway, Turtle's Hoard. Weird gems, you get them. I don't know, this is not an advertisement, although, you know, it's just a cool site, man. Anyway, we are definitely not going to be making something of this quality. We're not going to be making gem quality single crystal silicon carbide here. We are at best going to be making some polycrystalline material that hopefully fuses together. But jumping back in application, if the doping level is kind of right, we're not really going to try and dope it. We're just going to let the intrinsic dopants from all the impurities dope the material. If we can get that right, we should be able to form an LED. Well, an LED should just spontaneously form, and then we just put current through it, and we should see light coming out of it. There are some videos of people getting this industrial silicon carbide and putting voltage at certain spots, and you see the light emission from it. So sort of industrial silicon carbide can work as a LED. So I'm hoping to do the same thing here. These people obviously didn't make their silicon carbide. We've got to make it. We've got to try and fuse it together to form large enough crystals, or like masses of crystals, that we can start to see this LED behavior from the semiconductor material. That would be great. I always enter these videos with high optimism. 1800 degrees Celsius. That's kind of what we're aiming for. Reports of how hot we need to get this vary a lot, but it just seems like the hotter you get it, the better. We are going to be using my induction furnace, which can put 5 kilowatts of power into conductive material, and that got very hot last time we used it, which maybe we'll get that hot again. Maybe we can get it hotter. We've got to really improve the furnace a little bit so that it doesn't like melt if we're trying to get it hotter for sustained periods of time, but that's the goal. All right, that's it. Let's go do some science. Let's make the mixture. One thing at a time. Let's make the mixture. To make silicon carbide, we're not going to just mix silicon with carbon. We're actually going to use silicon dioxide with carbon, and it's, sort of going to make silicon in situ. The carbon's going to steal the oxygen from the silicon dioxide, hopefully form silicon carbide in there as well. And we are trying to make a semiconductor grade material, silicon carbide, as, an LED. So we obviously need to use the best quality reagents that we can possibly get. Silicon dioxide, there's lots of forms of silicon dioxide you can have around. Not all of them have a picture of a cute cat on them. Silica gel is just highly porous silicon dioxide. It'll have a lot of water absorbed in there, but we're not too worried about getting the mass ratios and everything right between this and the carbon. So if we just heat it, all the water should go off. There's a couple of blue crystals in here with some indicator in them. I think it used to be cobalt. It might not be cobalt chloride anymore, but we won't use the blue crystals. We'll just use the other non-blue crystals, and then any small amount of blue that comes through we'll just assume is dopant for our LEDs. So that's fine. Thanks this cat. And for the carbon source, fish. Activated carbon for like aquariums. This is carbon. It's just very porous, once again, for like absorbing contaminants. In my mind, when I was designing this project, I was like, porous materials, that would be great because then they have more surface area and we're doing a solid state reaction, so it'll be easier for them to react. But that's not how it works. Just because these two are both porous doesn't mean that the surface area between them is enhanced, because neither of them can fit into each other's pores. But maybe it might make it easier for us to crush it down to small particle sizes, especially considering comparing to something like beach sand, which is going to be very hard to crush down. So these little activated carbon granules will crunch that down into a nice fine powder, and this we will crunch down into a nice fine powder as well using a ball mill. We've got this good old-fashioned steel shot in the rubber. I do have the newer fancier one. I'm not sure if it's appropriate for crushing sand because it's pretty hard, and also, you know, it's still contaminated with lead from... Holy moly. Yeah, wow. That was weeks and weeks ago. I expected it to decay by now. That's... Lord, I should clean that, but anyway. We'll put that to side for now. We're going to be grinding this silicon dioxide outside, far away. Fucking silica dust is not healthy in the slightest. You've heard of asbestos, it's the same idea. It's not such a hazard to be around beach sand because all that sand is rounded, so it doesn't like get stuck. So there's a certain size range that is very, very hazardous to breathe and gives you all sorts of lung issues. So we are going to be taking that seriously, not releasing a whole lot of sharp silica dust in here. It's windy outside. It's a good day to crush some silica. I don't know, what is that cat thinking? What is that cat's expression? Is he just thinking about his next shit? He doesn't look that happy to be there, honestly. I mean, they could put any cat on this bag. They really put a very contemplative cat on here. Alright, let's just grind up the sand first, the silicon dioxide. We'll just crush that up by itself because it's going to take a lot longer to crush up this hard material than it will this very soft carbon. So let's crush it up. We should really crush them up individually and then we can weigh out set amounts rather than just eyeballing it. Even though we don't really care about the ratios too much, it at least feels a little bit more like science if we actually weigh things out rather than just sort of pouring in random amounts and getting to it. That being said, let's just pour in a random amount for now and get to it. Best of luck, little guy. Right, this has been running for about 3 hours. I've got my dust mask on. I'm not hoping for too much like nice white sand, but hopefully the particles are all kind of crushed down a little bit. What is this? Where'd all that come from? Look, I'm just going to put them in a blender. Yeah, I'll put them in a blender first. Clean all this off. What is this? Where's this from? What's going on? Alright, I've cleaned the ball mill. The stuff got all buffed before. I think there was all this caked on carbon, which I tried to clean off earlier, but I guess the grinding action of the silica against the walls dislodged a lot of carbon, which turned it all black. But it doesn't really matter because we're going to be mixing this with carbon anyway. It just feels a bit embarrassing to have reagents get so dirty from the equipment. So we're going to try again, but now with this sort of sand consistency powder in the ball mill, just to see if we can get it really, really fine. But do not want to breathe this, gotta say. Holy moly. Alright, we'll come back in a bit and see if this stuff has got any finer than this. Alright. Okay, this has been churning for about 8 hours all up, so let's finally get this open and see if we're actually doing anything or just contaminating our product. I don't think, I mean, given how hard the material is and the way we're kind of turning it, it's probably not really crushing it too much, but maybe it's still grinding the pieces against each other and kind of rounding them off, decreasing the particle size that way. That would be nice. Whoa. Maybe it's just absorbed water and kind of caked up in here. Yeah, it's kind of caked up, but it's looking, ooh, pretty fine. Pretty fine. Ooh, it's looking dangerous. Ooh, yes. Lord, okay, I shouldn't really have done that. Just the temptation to stick my hand in there really got to me. Sorry, lungs. Glad I put on the dust mask before doing this sort of shit. Still, ooh, Lord. I have bought a somewhat microscope. So maybe we'll have a look and see if we can sort of see roughly the particle size of what this is now and compare it to what it was just out of the blender. So I'll get some of this out. I gotta stop putting my hands in this fucking dangerous shit. My God. All right, cool. So we can see the consistency is a bit more like flour really, whereas before it was kind of fine sand. But I've got this $20 microscope. Yeah, this is, I don't have high hopes for this. It is allegedly 1,000 times zoom. That's just a straight lie. But, you know, for $20, I thought I'd risk it and maybe we can see at least some of the particle sizes of the larger ones. And when I say risk it, I mean, yeah, the only thing I'm really going to plug this into is a very old Lenovo ThinkPad that doesn't have internet connection. So nothing makes me feel more like I'm actually doing science than working with a Lenovo ThinkPad. All the labs I've been in just have a load-bearing Lenovo ThinkPad in there somewhere. I haven't turned this on in like 4 years maybe, so hopefully. Why did that boot faster than most of my computers? Windows 7, those were the days. Oh, Steam. Anyway, hopefully this works without drivers. I do have this CD. All right, let's get this working. Hopefully it just works straight through the camera app. That's what I'm optimistically hoping for. Oh. Okay, device is ready to use. Device software successfully installed. Movie Maker. This has Movie Maker on it? Oh man. This is what I edited the first Exposure to Fire videos on in Movie Maker. What's the last? Hydrazine Classic. What a workhorse. What am I doing? Oh, camera. I want to download their app. Alright. Alright, we're there. Okay, so this is a 100 by 100 micron grid, so 0.1 millimeters by 0.1 millimeters. Each of those square is 0.1 millimeters squared, right? So, I mean, it's not terrible resolution. This is probably about as good as it gets, it seems. Certainly not 1,000 times. It's not great quality or anything. So there's a grid in there. Let's see if we can see our particles. Yeah, as we can see, these particles are quite big. Blown away. Alright, cool. You can definitely see the particles are well over 100 micron. Some pieces that are close to 100 micron. Alright, now let's look at our other one. Yeah, the pieces don't look like a lot smaller, but they just look all smashed up. It's all soft little bits that are clumping together. I mean, you can see it's small enough to get into the fibres of the paper now. Anyway, all this to say, yes, we successfully milled the particles down to a smaller particle size. That's great. That's really good for our solid state reaction. That's really good. I'm pleased. I'm pleased. I'm pleased we have all this silica dust around. I'm very pleased. I'm just heating up the silicon dioxide now. This is just to remove some of the water. Well, I'm trying to get rid of most of the water, I suppose, so our weighing is accurate, so we know how much silicon dioxide we have to carbon in our ratio. Once again, it doesn't really matter. It just feels like we're doing a bit better science if we are accurate with our weighing rather than just mixing a random amount of sand and charcoal and torching it and calling it a day. Yeah, well, you can heat this up pretty hot. Obviously not going to decompose, so what's it say, 150? Yeah, I might as well just crank that, and then we'll let it cool under vacuum. I'll put in one of those chambers and cool it down, follow vacuum, so we don't just immediately pull back water from the air. Once it starts cooling down again, should be all right. And in the meantime, I'm going to go crunch up some of those carbon pieces, those carbon rods, into some nice fine carbon powder, all ready to mix with this one. So let's go crunch some carbon powder. Alright, that wasn't a particularly exciting montage, but at least now we have dried out our silicon dioxide and our carbon and get to the much more exciting bit, which is the heating part. But I've been very lazy the last 2 weeks. Haven't done much, but also there's an excuse for my laziness, which is I don't want to disturb some new little guys because it's October, so that means the birds are back. I haven't checked on them in about 10 days, but I assume... Hello? Any guys? Little guys? It's still eggs. How long do they stay eggs? Wow. A while, I suppose. Well, okay, well then there's no excuse for my laziness, although I definitely disturbed the mama bird. She does not like me being here, but, you know, I kind of was here first, honestly. Once again, it's probably on me for not moving this nest all year, but then again, if I had moved this nest, they probably would have rebuilt it. She's done some improvements to it this year. It looks bigger than it was previously. It's a huge nest now for two guys. But, anyway, let's, we'll focus back on the bloody, chemistry here. Well, let's see if we can make some silicon carbide before, the birds leave the nest. That's always a real indication of the passing of time. But man, they must stay as eggs for 2 weeks. I suppose that's not a very long period of time for like an egg. I don't know. I don't understand eggs. Big Egg says it's probably fine. That's not my domain. We're here to do chemistry. Biology is weird and confusing to me. Okay, so ratios. We have our powdered carbon and we have our powdered silicon dioxide, which I've set up to weigh out here, but I'm actually not going to weigh out here because powdered silicon dioxide, and I keep forgetting that I cannot handle that indoors. How much do we need of each? Actually, if we look at the reaction scheme, work out the molar masses, it's about 6 grams of carbon to 10 grams of silicon dioxide. However, I think I'm going to increase the carbon by, a bit, but not too much. So maybe, let's say 8 grams of carbon to 10 grams of silicon dioxide, because the way this is going to work, the way that we're going to get these high temperatures is because the carbon is conductive, and we have this in an induction furnace. So the induction furnace is, magnets, and it's just going to heat up electrically conductive materials. It's designed to melt metals, but also in its normal design, it has this big graphite crucible, and of course the graphite is conductive, so the induction furnace is also heating up the crucible, which is how we managed to get to quite high temperatures last time we used the furnace, even though we didn't have a conductive material we wanted to heat, which was the yellow pigment. But because the crucible itself got so hot from the the induction coils that the material inside got hot. We're not going to try and do that today. We're going to try and use a non-conductive crucible, and that way we've just got kind of this small amount of carbon in there, which is going to take all the heat, all the wattage from the induction coils and into just that small amount of carbon. And then that way we're not radiating out all the heat from the crucible like we were last time. Hopefully we can try and contain all that radiation and everything inside a crucible that will survive the high temperatures, and then just the silicon dioxide and the carbon itself gets super hot in there. So we're going to do just a little bit more carbon. Wow, it's really windy, everything's creaking today. Hope it's not a thunderstorm blowing in. That'll really ruin my plans for the day. But what did I say? 10 grams of silicon dioxide, 8 grams of carbon, or maybe double that, and we'll just put it through the ball mill one more time as the mixture, just to get everything really nice nice and mixed and together. Might as well. I mean, the ball mill's already dirty with just a little bit of silicon dioxide, so that should be fine. We'll just make a big batch and we'll see how much fits in the crucibles, because the crucibles still haven't arrived. I've had some trouble sourcing the crucibles that will successfully do what I want to do. Well, ideally successfully do what I want them to do. They still might explode trying to get them to this height, but don't have the crucibles yet, so let's just grind it together. Let's just do that. Just take another little small step. Why not? All right, that's 20 grams of silica, 16 grams of carbon. Whoa. Importantly, now that this is turning and we don't have any crucibles, still waiting for them to ship. In the meantime, let's get this bloody induction furnace working well. I have some modifications I want to do to it to make it run hotter, because I feel like it can get very hot, but the problem is the water cooling. Let's go spend some money, spend some more money on some more things and try and improve the water cooling of the furnace. Let's do that in the meantime, and we'll just let this run. We'll come back to this at some point. All right, and there it is, the bloody furnace. Let's go. The bloody mini motherfucking melting furnace. This did a great job last time. Actually, when I say that, we wanted to try and get the mixture, the pigment mixture really hot, and we believe it got too hot. So that's good, because we were aiming for about 1400 degrees last time. Now we're aiming for about 1800. We need to do some upgrades on this. Well, actually, mostly on its bloody back end here, because this water pump here runs off this bloody outlet, which does, 240 volt for some reason, just to step it down to 12 volts to run this pump, to pump water through, which is as it came from the manufacturer, just with the tube on the inside, even though this, obviously these barbs are made to like have the tubing go on the outside with a hose clamp, but they've really just put this pump on here. It's just terrible, and it's bad for a number of reasons, but also the fact that it runs off this power here, so if this whole thing draws too much power from the wall and trips the circuits, which we were worried about it doing last time, then this pump stops working, so the water stops circulating. So if it's hot and then the power trips, this thing will melt down. And even when it was running, with the water running through it, the water was coming out steaming, which is just unacceptable, because if the water starts boiling on the inside, it doesn't cool the furnace. So that's also no good. So we need a whole new pump system, really. And ideally, it's like a water chiller. So something that's trying to cool the water as well as recirculate it, so that we don't just have to have a huge reservoir and just wait for that reservoir to heat up over time. So I don't have one of them, but maybe I can get one of them and just not use this bloody contraption. We can use this side and then plumb in our own water into the inlet and outlet. Then I would feel a lot better about this, and there are a lot of comments telling me to do this last time, which is fair enough. Yeah, let's improve this induction furnace so that we feel a little bit better letting it run without risk of it causing a meltdown. Okay, I've bought another machine, brand new, still in its plastic. Vevor, tough tools, half price. What a slogan. This thing, I mean, it really was half price. This thing was only like just under 300 Australian dollars, which is very, very cheap. So I'm a little worried about it. This is a water chiller. So it's going to pump the water around and also maintain the temperature of the water. Well, ideally. It's 150 watts of cooling power, so the water sits in there and it's got a cooling unit, and it's really just trying to take the heat out of the water, so if we have warm water returning to the machine, we don't recirculate warm water back to the machine. So that's what this is a chiller here for. Forbidden to start without water. The water level is forbidden to exceed yellow. Seems appropriate for the channel. What else do the instructions say? Installing this industrial chiller is very simple. All right, we'll take his word for it. Let's go. Let's fill this guy up. Why doesn't the tap work? Wasting my goddamn time. All right, it is filled with water and plugged into mains electricity, so we can now get this bad boy started. Is every bit of machinery I buy a boy? Maybe I need some gender diversity in the lab. Maybe one of them can be a girl, you know? We can see how that pans out for us, you know? Let's get this bad girl turned on. Okay, that immediately was the worst thing I've ever said. Let's get this non-gendered machine fucking on. Look, we got some piping. The water, it's flowing so fast you can't even see it. That's beautiful. And the screen is so dull you can't even see it. Okay, cool. Are there controls? Or is that not really a thing that this thing does? All right, well, I mean, usually a chiller you can like set a water temp, but this just has on, off, and red light, green light. But it's showing green light. So, yeah, I wonder what it's trying to cool the water to, or maybe it just cools the water as hard as it can and calls it a day. Why is there not a set temperature button? How did I not notice there was not a set temperature button? That's fine. We don't need it to be a specific temperature, but like, what is it trying to do? Like, what temperature is it trying to achieve? Or it's just trying to fucking keep it at room temperature. That's fine, I guess. All right, Vivor, tough tools, half price. E-warranty certificate. Oh, Christ. Why do I feel like I've avoided the warranty already just by turning it on somehow? All right, now, so we got this water coming through here. Our next step is to get it flowing through the bloody induction furnace. It's got different fittings, so I'm gonna have to like do some plumbing to get the water to flow through there and do it well, because we don't want it to like burst open, combining extremely high heat, water and electricity all in one glorious moment. We don't really want that, so the fittings have to be done reasonably well. Like, for example, I haven't put any hose clamps on here, even though it came with hose clamps. I should do that. Actually, I'm also going to put some coolant in this bad thing. Then hopefully it should be a bit easier to see the flow, and also I just like it when it's green, and also, yeah, maybe it'll stop it boiling, although hopefully with this chiller we won't get to that point. Ooh, freehand pour. Yeah. All those years of chemistry was worth it. Oh, I bragged too much. Oh, are we in the forbidden zone? Oh, nearly. All right, I'll flick it on. Yeah, see, look how quickly that went green. It's throwing that water around. It's a good flow rate. No air bubbles either. Very, very good. Very, very good. You are right. Just staring me down. Here we go, I haven't done too bad a job. Yeah, these fittings are really the only thing stopping us having a big disaster. So hose barb to MPT to bush fitting. So we can go from 10mm tubing to 6mm tubing. This is pretty high flow, so it'll actually be very high flow through this 6mm tubing here. 10mm internal, 6mm external. Anyway, this is very boring stuff. It looks all good. Yeah, I suppose it's easy to be proud of a plumbing setup before you turn it on. What does that mean? Are we in the yellow zone? Is it too high? Is it... What do you want from me? You have a screen. Okay. My piping, it's too powerful for it. Let's try it again. Try and pump. Come on. Maybe the water level's too low. All right, another attempt. Come on, is the pressure just too high for you? What's going on? Okay. So that's pretty good. Okay, troubleshooting, it was my fault. I connected the inlet to the inlet, but the outlet needs to go to the inlet, and the... Now we try again. It's getting there. Go. It's probably whinging just because there's air bubbles and there's no actual good return flow, but we'll get there. You'll get there. Oh, yeah. All right, if I turn you off and on, are you gonna still beep? Why? All right, I get it. find the instruction manual. Said the operation was simple. Why are you beeping? Well, if you're whinging about the flow, it's too bad. You can do it. You're doing it. Shush. Okay, after a bit of testing, it's definitely a low flow alarm. So I've shortened these sections just a little. Hopefully that helps. Please, come on. You can do it. Maybe the machine has to be on. Maybe there's a little flow switch internally to this thing that it wants to be powered up before it like opens a valve or something internally. I doubt it, but let's just power this up. Not turn on the heating, but just to power up, see if it opens up some water lines or something internally there. Nah. Alright, I think I'm going to have to crack this guy open. Just have a look at some of the tubing internally in there, because if we can switch out some of the tubing for a bigger diameter tubing, then it'll increase the flow, which is better for it, and we'll stop this alarming. Damn. I was so impressed with my plumbing. Oh well, we'll get there. We'll get there. I don't want to disturb them, but yesterday these guys were eggs. Hello. Beep, beep, beep. Alright, sorry. I'll stop disturbing you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm leaving. I'm leaving. Alright, I have finally got this working. I don't even know when the last update was, but there are more water lines now. But how this was set up previously, actually, I'll turn this off while I explain this. Previously, the water was doing two things in here. I think it's going through two heat exchangers. There's this one here. You can see the in and outlets here, but there's also one on the other side of the circuit board, which I can't really see. But the water line, see this water line here is going to go back there. And previously what it was doing was going through both of these heat exchangers sequentially. So it was going through the one on the other side of the circuit board first and then flowing out of there and then going into this one and then coming out. So that probably explains why it got so hot, because it's going through two heat exchangers, and it's not so great because the water entering this second heat exchanger was already hot when it probably went in there, so no wonder it was coming out steaming. And also, I guess with these heat exchangers, it really restricts the flow. Water chiller really didn't want to push all the water through both of those heat exchangers sequentially. So what I've done is now I've teed off the water, so half of the water goes through one exchange and half of the water goes through the other exchange, and then it goes all the way back in there. So cooling them in parallel is much better, I think, and also it doesn't restrict the flow as much, so now this bloody thing is happy. It's not like heaps big humongous flow, but it's like still pretty decent. There's just some air trapped in here. You can get that out, but it's decent. And as long as the chiller keeps the temperature normal, then it should be all right. And there's definitely some leaks there. I can't believe they've recessed this bit. I guess from a design point of view, it looks kind of nice, but like, you obviously need to get to these clamps to fucking tighten them. And when it's recessed, you can't, like, it's so much harder to get the fucking hose clamps. Anyway, so that's why it's leaking water into the internal circuit board there. But I'll work on fixing that. Just gotta tighten the hose clamp. I just gotta get this screwdriver into there properly. Spent so much more time on this than I wanted to, and then was probably interesting in the video. I don't know if any of this is interesting, but now this thing won't melt down probably as easier. Maybe we'll go to all this effort and this thing will still just melt down, but I feel better about it now. We can crank the temperature again. Hopefully this thing, Tough Tools half price, still manages to keep this thing at 1800 degrees Celsius. Are you feeling confident? Alright, here we are. Everything's reconnected. Everything's flying well. This has been going for like 10 minutes and it's about 20 degrees Celsius on the screen. There's a small water leak just because I'm missing a hose clamp here, but that's not a big deal. We've got lots of water in the reservoir. We've got a brand new graphite crucible here. I haven't turned this on in a while. Well, I mean, it's on now, but it hasn't been heating. So let's just crank it. Let's see. What do we want? 2000? We'll see if it heats up. Let's see what the water looks like. I've got the thermal imaging going. So we'll see if this chiller can keep up with the demand, and also if it doesn't trip the power, that'll be nice. 4,000 watts. Whoop. Alright. Lost power. I don't like that. Hopefully. Yes. Yeah. Alright, I think you've loaded too much. Stuff can get too hot. Yeah, that's good. It seemed to work pretty well. I managed to keep it going hot for about, maybe 15 minutes. Temperature on the cooler is 30.8 degrees Celsius, which is, I mean, okay. It probably still can't run indefinitely, but it can run okay. I mean, there is water everywhere. 2 connections here that don't have a hose clamp on them. But apart from that, I think it's okay. Yeah, see, that's the one. That's the one I pointed to. As the water gets hot, it softens the tubes and they come off the connections, which makes sense, and that's exactly what you have the hose clamp for. Yeah, alright. I have bought you a singular raspberry. I don't know if you eat berries. You probably don't. Do you guys? Do you guys eat berries? Okay, let's talk crucibles. Now, we need the crucible to do 2 things. We need it to survive 1800 degrees Celsius and also not be conductive, so that the induction furnace will heat the graphite in the crucible directly. Usually what you would do is you use these alumina crucibles. These are not that expensive and can survive reasonably high temperatures, but sort of from online seems like they won't go above 1600 degrees Celsius, or really even kind of 1400. So they'll melt, that'll be very bad. Now, if you wanted to go hotter, normally you would go to a graphite or a metal crucible like nickel or tungsten or platinum or iridium, which are expensive, but that's not the main issue. The main issue is that they're conductive, so that doesn't really work with our tactics. So instead, we've gone to some a bit more obscure materials. Well, they're not really obscure, but they're just harder to find on like eBay. This is magnesium oxide crucibles. These got shipped out of China and it took 2 months to ship, but here we are. These should survive up to a bit over 2000 degrees Celsius. So we shouldn't have any issues with temperature as long as we just don't shatter them. And the other crucibles I bought while waiting for these ones to arrive, and these are zirconia crucibles. Zirconia really is the key material for this. Yttrium stabilized zirconia is kind of like the new cool ceramic. It's not new really. It can survive really high temperatures very, very well. The problem is, well, the companies I ask for this kind of material keep telling me that it's export controlled, which is kind of a defense thing that like America and China have and blah blah blah, and they should still sell it to me. I just have to sign a form that says no, I won't use this to make weapons or nuclear weapons or something like that. I think maybe the seller's telling me that it's export controlled is just kind of a polite way of them saying no, they don't want to sell it to me. But this is not yttrium stabilized zirconia, this is calcium stabilized zirconia, which I think is slightly cheaper. These were still $100 each, so all together here is probably 300 USD just for these kind of 5 crucibles. So hopefully we don't just churn through and shatter them. That's the goal. I mean, they look just like normal ceramic, but hopefully they do survive these temperatures, and maybe I'll use them both. I'll use this, get this one, and then get like this tall skinny one so that, you know, it's kind of sitting in this magnet, or maybe something like this, and then that sits in there. This is filled with a graphite and silicon dioxide mix. That'll get really hot. It loses a lot of heat at these high temperatures from radiation, but we just have to stop the radiation getting to everywhere else and melting everything else. So if we contain it in here, I've got some glass wool as well. It's alumina wool, which won't be good above 1400 degrees, but maybe will help kind of block some of that radiation from getting everywhere. I was hoping for this project to get some yttrium stabilized zirconia wool, which is a product that is sold, but it's expensive and it's hard to get once again. Maybe it really is export controlled because you need it for, I don't know, jet engines or some stupid thing, but whatever. We're living on eBay scraps, which is very normal for us, so that's fine. All right, and then some other extra purchases, because why not? This is a high temperature thermocouple. Once again, is all alumina based, protective layer, and has a little bit of metal down the end, so this won't go much above 1350 degrees Celsius without catastrophically failing, but will at least let us, you know, if we can have this here maybe outside of the zirconia, it will at least tell us if we're getting too hot and about to hit meltdown temperatures on the outside, which will be bad. So I think we're all ready to go. The mix is all nicely mixed, so we just got to load it in there. I was thinking it would be nice if we could preheat the stuff in this other just normal resistive furnace, which will heat up the crucible. It'll get it to maybe, let's choose maybe 1800 degrees. The maximum temperature on this one is 1100. But if we get it to a nice cruisy 800 degrees, then when we ramp it in the induction furnace and get the inside really, really hot, at least we're not going from like room temperature to 1800 degrees Celsius in like 2 minutes. Hopefully if we give it a bit of preheating preheating, it won't shatter. This is a part because I just turned it on because it was working. Now it's no longer working, so I've checked all the connections and the switch is broken, but I don't feel like I have a right to complain too much because 2 videos ago I was saying how amazing this was, that it was so cheap, and I love Chinese goods. So this is me reaping what I've sowed. God damn, I hate reaping. I only want to sow, honestly, but god damn, at least I've found the issue because I just plugged it in, it didn't turn on, took it apart. I mean, it's not that complicated. Well, I mean, you know, there's wires, and yeah, the wires just go between like the screen and the switch and the furnace, you know, the resistor section, which is this bit. Either a wire had melted or something, but it's just these connections on this switch, which look fine, but whatever. It's so boring. I come here to do chemistry, and you know, I turn on all the machines and all the machines break. Once again, it's the goddamn consequences of my actions, so I can't complain too much. So we'll load in the stuff and get it preheating once I fix this, and then I'll see you back at the induction furnace for some seriousness, you know, when things are starting to get serious. Yeah, I'm gonna check on the birds too. Speaking of getting serious, let's immediately get distracted. Oh, I just ripped my fucking pants. Oh, Christ. Can anything else go wrong with this project? Fuck. Just solder this with my goddamn dick out. Whatever. Let's fucking get this done. Hey. Alright, thank you. Oh, what? We'll come back in a bit, maybe an hour or so. The moment has arrived. This has been preheating, not getting heated at the moment, so I can't yap for too long. Let's get this cranking. This is on a different circuit to here. I was going to use that thermometer probe, but thank you if you've already noticed the issue is the fact that that's metal. It's obviously a metal probe, so if I put that into the induction coils, it will melt the probe, so I can't use that probe. Thank you if you've already commented or you were screaming at your television that that was a dumb idea. I did realize that, so thank you. I got your message. So the carbon is obviously ashing even at that lower, you know, 800 degrees, which it got preheated at. This is really the challenge, I think, because if the hot carbon interacts with the air, it's going to burn, but can't just seal it all completely shut because when it reacts with the silicon dioxide, it produces carbon monoxide. So we also have to let it out gas as well. So we need to sort of seal it, but not too much. I mean, we don't mind if some of the carbon burns as long as some of the carbon also reacts with the silicon dioxide. That's really the challenge, to balance how much it burns. I mean, maybe you think, oh, I could get an argon cylinder here and pump in argon as a protective gas, and maybe we'll try it in future runs if this doesn't work, but I worry that like pushing in a gas will like make it all turbulent and maybe give it more oxygen by mixing with the air anyway. And also we run the risk of if I turn the argon up slightly too much, it's going to like blow all the powder out, and if I get a big cloud of superheated carbon, that would be a real nightmare scenario. So we're going to try a real basic approach here, which is just getting some fire brick lid here here, going over the top and cranking it. Hopefully, it's that carbon down the bottom that's spilled out of the inner crucible, probably burned, but that hopefully will consume a lot of the oxygen as well in there, and you know, all the carbon and silicon mixed down the bottom of that inner crucible doesn't really interact with the air, and we'll be heating it so rapidly, so quickly that hopefully it doesn't interact with the air. Anyway, these are all hypotheticals. Let's put it to practice. All right, water's still flowing nicely. Let's get this baddie on. 3,000. Let's try 3,000. I hate the lid. I can't see what the fuck's going on. All right, straight away I'm removing the lid. I'm just going to see if it's heating up. Ah, these are shit tongs. Can we see in with that camera? A little. Water temperature is 21. Lid on for a sec. Alright, water temperature is 23.6, so I'm just going to give it a quick break from heating for the moment. Okay, let's try it again. I've pushed the crucible further down, just I guess maybe it wasn't in the coils properly, and let's just go all the way to 5,000. That's not very hot at all, is it? 100 degrees. Do that on my kitchen stove. Alright, crucible's down the bottom now. It's also raining, which is great. The cooling water's cooled down a little bit. Let's just give this one more shot. I want to see this actually heat up, you know. Alright, it's really not heating up. I feel like I've fundamentally misunderstood something here. Unless I've burnt off all the carbon, but the stuff's already black. The stuff is black. Alright, I've just put in some fresh carbon and silicon dioxide mix. This stuff hadn't had the preheat, just in case we, I don't know, burnt off all the carbon. I know. I've just had a horrifying realization why this might not be working. I think I've missed something fundamental. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. I've spent months on this and I've missed something fundamental. Oh no. Oh no. It's just carbon. It's not conductive. Of course it's not graphite. It's not going to be conductive unless it's specifically graphite, and this is just amorphous carbon. Oh, I can't believe I've done this. I can't believe I've done this. Graphite. Alright, this is a bag of graphite. It cost me $10 and maybe was cheaper than the activated carbon. But we have graphite now. We got powdered graphite. It's a nice fine powder. Cost us 2 weeks. I had to wait 2 weeks for this thing to show up from Alpha Ingredients. Oh, hell yeah. Alpha Ingredients anyway. Yeah, I just got it on eBay. 2 weeks is fine. Sure. But it does mean that the birds are left. Kind of sad to see them go. I mean, I'm proud of them. You know, I miss them, but you know, I got to remember that they didn't really like me. You know, they don't enjoy my company. So I'm sure they're pleased to be away from me and my goddamn yapping and complaining. Anyway, graphite. Look, we've loaded some here in one of these cheap alumina crucibles. Is it conductive? Get me probes out. Probes in. Yeah, I mean. Yeah, it's basically there. Fantastic. All right, it's conductive, so it should definitely heat in the induction furnace. But we've got some in this cheap crucible, so let's just put it in the induction furnace. Just do some obvious things just to get some wins. If it does heat up, which it better, then we can mix this with our silicon dioxide that we made previously. We've still got a lot left over, and then try out heating the mixture again. Let's get this done. The birds have left, so we're behind schedule. Let's go. Graphite crucibles in there. Let's turn it on. 3,000. Really not heating up? Still working, okay? Kinda getting hot. Not like a lot. getting a little hot, like 200, but it should be getting way hotter. I think, again, I've fundamentally misunderstood something about how this works, because why is this not getting that hot? It's graphite, mostly conductive. Does it like need to be around the edge? Does the current like run in a circle or something? And you know, having it in the middle doesn't work? Maybe? It's too low? Does it need to be higher? It's on maximum. The crucible would be getting red hot right now. I don't understand. Alright, this whole project has felt like beating my head against a wall, but for whatever reason, the graphite in the crucible does not heat up in the furnace. Well, it heats up very slightly, but only to like 200 degrees or so, which is so far short of what we're expecting it to, and so far short of what a graphite crucible heats up. I don't know if there's something wrong with the geometry of having a little vial of powder in there, as opposed to having like, you know, this ring of graphite throughout the whole coils, but it's probably just because the powdered graphite is just not conductive enough when it's in that fine powder to really get a lot of heating from the coils, because you know it needs that electrical conductivity to make the eddy currents to make the heat. But you know, even if I didn't think it was like the bulk powder, maybe doesn't have a great conductivity, but each flake of graphite surely is conductive enough to get enough heating, and then you're heating each individual particle. But if we're struggling to make the pure graphite slightly warm, then we're going to have no luck with the graphite mixed with incredible insulator silicon dioxide. That's going to be way less conductive than the pure graphite, so that's going to heat up even less, so we're not even going to be able to heat that mixture at all, which is the whole point of this project, the whole point of this video. Anyway, we're pivoting. I've got this small graphite crucible, so I guess in the end of it we can just heat it in a graphite crucible. All the heat's going to be dumped into the crucible, so I don't know if the insides are going to get as hot, but being a smaller crucible, hopefully we can still dump the 5 kilowatts into this and this can heat up the insides. And I suppose, you know, the graphite from the crucible is going to also react with, you know, the silicon dioxide or whatever, but we'll just smash apart this crucible after we've done heating it to high temperatures. But at least we'll get it hot, unlike this. It's just wasting my time. I guess I just don't quite understand how this machine works. But anyway, before I fill this with graphite powder or with our mixture, let's put it in here and see if this furnace gets this hot, because I don't know, maybe this is broken in the last couple of weeks while I've been waiting for crucibles that I'm not even going to use. If anything else in this video breaks, I'm just ending this video. It's going to be an abrupt cut. No more equipment repairs in this video. If it breaks slightly, it's getting thrown in the ocean. Okay, let's try it out. You got to threaten the equipment every so often to keep it humble. Alright, water temperature is 20 degrees. Turning on the furnace. We're on the heating. Turn it to 4 kilowatts. Yeah, see, it's so hot. It's hot already. It's already at 300 degrees. Yeah, alright. This is better. Okay, now we're cooking. That'll get glowing hot in a matter of seconds, I think. Yeah, look at that. See? That's fantastic. See, that's hot. That's hot. Probably got to, you know, 800 degrees in, what, 20 seconds, 20, 30 seconds? Yeah, but, you know, I leave the graphite powder heating for 5 minutes and it doesn't even break 200, so I don't know. Alright, so this small crucible definitely gets pretty hot, so let's just load our powder into there. We'll do a little bit of preheating just to dry it out, but we don't need to worry about too much preheating because the graphite crucible's not going to shatter. So let's load our powder in and let's get it hot. Let's just get this hot. Oh, it's glowing. It's only 800 degrees. It's glowing. Alright, lid is on. Water temperature is 18 degrees. Let's go 3 kilowatts. Turning on. It's heating up nicely. Gonna give it 10 seconds to equilibrate. Alright, I'm gonna just put it to max. See how we go. reasonably hot. Glad I got the glasses on. Got better glasses on this time. Oh yeah. Oh, that's hot. That's pretty hot. Everything's glowing in there. Oh, that's getting hot. That's getting hot. It is working though, I think. I'm optimistic. The temperature's reading at 32 degrees on the cooling water, but it's just this one return line that's not doing so good. It is blowing, there's just a lot of heat internally. So the return water's getting very hot. The tube's getting all floppy. Give it another break. Okay, it's been off for about 15 minutes now. Let's have a look at our crucible. I don't think it'll be completely room temperature, but let's get it out and let's have a look to see if the material inside has changed at all. I think it's probably going to need a couple of heating cycles. Maybe it needs to be compressed down because I didn't really tamp it down or compress it down before this heating cycle. Let the gas escape and let it off gas. But now maybe if we form some silicon carbide and we compress it down and reheat it, it might start to fuse some of it together. Anyway, let's get it out and have a look. All right, our outer crucible cracked. The zirconia one. Oh well, expensive, but it's fine. There's certainly less powder in there. Let's tamp it down and then blast it. Oh, even the outside's glowing. The outside's glowing, the inside is probably... Yeah. Looking good. It's going well, but the induction furnace is just getting really hot everywhere and the cooling water, but I don't want this stuff to cool down internally too much, so this furnace is heated to 1100 degrees, so I'm just going to move the crucible into here, give this 10 minutes to relax, and then move our 1000 degree crucible back in and then keep heating it. That's my plan. Kind of easier said than done. Lord. Just the broken bit. Alright, I'll go keep this one hot. Whoa. Whoa. Cracked. Oh Lord. Alright. Now let's get it heated. I can get it much hotter than that. That's yeah, that's probably about as hot as it's gonna get. All right, I think we're pretty much at its limit. All the bubbles in here are, you know, when the water's starting to boil internally. So I think with better plumbing we could definitely rectify this, but still it must be getting pretty hot internally. I think we've reached really the limit of what we can do here. You can see the outer crucible kind of glowing as well. So this furnace is pretty damaged from going up to 1100. 1150 is its maximum actually. That's what I set it to. So it's the paint and everything is starting to flake off when it's at its maximum. You can see it's really tarnished a lot. So if we haven't managed to do it now, then I don't think we'll manage to do it with this setup as it currently is. So I'm going to stop and let it cool down, and then we can have a look at this solid and maybe have a look at it under the microscope if we can't see anything visually different. But I'm optimistic. It looks pretty hot, and it's been hot for, you know, a good 10-20 minutes now, and you know, 20 minutes earlier before we kind of compressed it down. So I hope we have some silicon carbide. This will make it all worthwhile if we can see some silicon carbide. That'll be excellent. Hopefully we can. It kind of seems a bit sparkly, honestly. There's certainly some sparkle in there, which was not there before. There are these little bits of molten mass within this. I don't think they're silicon carbide. The only thing I can think they could be is melted silicon dioxide that's congealed together, and if that's the case, it means we definitely got to around 1700 degrees, because that's what you need to melt silicon dioxide. So this could be silicon carbide itself, I suppose. See this bowl here, it feels like a bit of molten metal or something, but it's not. It's very light, so it must be molten oxide. That's so cool. Okay, so it's not the most convincing of end products, I gotta say. I really enjoy the sparkle. Have a look at the sparkle. How good is the sparkle? You're actually fusing the silicon carbide into big enough crystals to test for their LED properties. I think we're a long way short of that still. We really tried. We really tried. If nothing else for this project, you gotta give me points for trying. And you know what? Despite everything, I still kind of enjoyed this. So I don't know what that says about me.